So thank you for joining. So no camera, I am still working hard. I just wanted to quickly, hey! Yeah, I mean, it should be working. Should be. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on because obviously the plan was it would be done and happening on Monday. And obviously there's been quite a lot of shell cities happening this week. I'm going to talk about those really quickly. But it's just going to be a super fast legal challenge update rather than a full-on show. Does it sound underwater? It's really strange if it's not working. Hey Neil, is the microphone not working? This is the same microphone I use every single morning. Same microphone I use every single morning for my There's something about changing live with you guys that just goes on my head. I don't understand it. That's not better. Oh,
But it's connected via jack. I don't understand it. Is it really bad that you can't hear? Maybe I haven't pushed it in properly. Oh no, it's working now, is it? Okay. I don't understand that. Hey Penelope, why? I just don't understand it. I mean, I know that I haven't been here for a week, but every single day, bar Sunday, I go live to my therapy clients. We have a half an hour journaling session every single morning between 8 and 8:30, which is where the affirmation things come from. And it's the exact same setup. Like it didn't change anything. I just pressed live with you guys. Anyway, so we'll just have to have microphone checks, I guess. There's no way for me to kind of tell whether it works or not, which is really silly. Anyway, so I want to just quickly, what am I saying? Start. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to show you where we're up to, because the plan was to get it all done by Monday. That didn't happen. So I want you guys to kind of understand why. I'm going to show you where we're up to, and then we're going to quickly talk about a couple of bits of Shill City. So first things first, the reason why it hasn't gone in yet is because I was reading through all of the, I'm going to call them faux lawyers. I was reading through the faux lawyers cases. And I was reading them through and I was thinking, well, I can see why that's going to fail. These are before they've even been like pushed out by the courts. I can see why that's going to fail. They're going directly after, going head on. So I just want to pre-warn you guys. I'm not going to tell you everything that we're doing because that needs to stay completely under wraps. But one of the things that I could tell that they're doing is they're trying to prove, well, actually, they're not trying to prove anything. They're all just completely woolly, useless cases. But one, they're not using many of the laws that we have available, which is really frustrating. Two, they all seem to be using the EU laws. And I was the 1st of August, like the EU laws really don't count in the UK legal system, which is positive in a way. I mean, it's really positive because it means that's how we can get rid of the terrorists. That's why it changed. But then it also means for us here in the UK, there is no get out of jail free card by anybody going to the European Courts of Rights to overturn what our courts have done in the UK for them being convicted, which also then means any appeals outside of the UK just kind of doesn't matter. It's nonsensical, and it's really silly. So I was reading through their stuff, and I was reading through the things that had kind of been kicked out before, and there's a really common thread that they just don't make the case. Like, just there is no, I don't know. There's no substance. They don't have any substance. So, if we nip back to the terrorism statement, the thing that I kept getting really frustrated with, and you guys who are here would have seen that, you know, I kept getting really frustrated that people were just talking about COVID, or maybe somebody is just talking about human trafficking, or maybe somebody is just talking about climate change, and they're not actually paying attention to the fact that it's an entire big picture. And in order for you to make the case of, but why would they do that, you have to have some kind of substance. And none of them were doing that. So as of so on last Saturday, and I did post this in Telegram, I was working on the injunction, and I was doing it, and I just knew that the way that we were doing it wouldn't work. Not that the injunction wouldn't work, but the way that we were going to go, the way that I was putting it together, the way that we were putting it together. And so I prayed. I was just like, I need you, big G, I need you to give me a clue as to how we make this happen. And so then I did. And so this is where we've come up with a very interesting way to put forward all of the evidence we need in a way that what we're trying to prove is actually really, really simple and really, really easy, which you will understand when you read it. Okay. So that's the kind of little sneaky bit that I can't tell you about what we're actually going after. New fish? No, I haven't. I haven't watched or read or done anything other than type for the last. So I did, I do have clients. So Thursday, Friday, I was, 3 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night doing client work. So then I've got today and tomorrow to kind of get this done. So hopefully the plan is to get it in on Monday. But what I want to do is I want to just kind of, so one of the things that really annoys me is that we never really, people were always saying, we're doing these things. And you never really see anything. And I don't want you guys, and I know you guys always say to me, like, I trust you. I say you can't trust anybody. But I want to just, you're not going to be able to read anything. But I just want to kind of show you that there is a lot. So I'm going to start at the top. Okay. So this is what I have been working on. And so I want to show you, there's lots of words, there's graphs, there's bar charts, I've been number crunching and doing data. We've got more data. We've got, oh, that's interesting. This is vaccinated. In Tanzania, 0.57% of the population are vaccinated, but 100% of the rest of the population is not dead. So good things here in the UK, guys. It's really low. This is according to Our World in Data. There's only 65% fully vaccinated, supposedly fully vaccinated. So 70% either way. So it's 30 odd percent more words, more words, more words, more words, more words, more words, more graphs, more words, more words. Green highlighted bits where I need to go back and fill in. And so we're ending on page 81 for now. For now. I may watch it tomorrow afternoon, New Fish, when I'm doing the legal bits. So at the moment I'm still building the case. So we're doing it based on 3 premise. And I'm not going to tell you that either. I can't give it away because we can't have them mitigate anything, and at the moment they can't. I mean, it doesn't matter if they try anyway, because it's genuinely ironclad. But so one thing I'd love to say for those of you who haven't yet done a victim impact statement, please do send it over. So I know there was initially, because I was doing it in a way that was wrong, the same way everybody else is doing it that's wrong. The victim impact statements were around people who had been vaccinated or potentially losing their jobs because of the vaccination. But actually, one of the little intuitive bits of information that came through was the reiteration. Hey, Kat. Reiteration that you're a psychologist. Like, you're a psychologist for a reason. And we have all been subjected to an unlawful psychological warfare operation. So that is one of the premises, and that's kind of something that I've spoken about for a while. So that is one premise. Nobody has been able to consent. That this isn't changing. So ground 2 is that not a single person has been able to consent because they've been under a psychological warfare operation, which feeds into the main argument. Okay. So if I was trying to prove that and that be the entire case, that would be really difficult. The way that we're going to prove that and get that submitted is really sneaky, really sneaky. But so what that means is that every single person in the UK who has been unvaxxed, so all of us anti-vaxxers, if that's what they want to call us, we can, like, it does not matter. It just, if you have been forced to wear a mask in order to go to work, that's a violation of your human rights. If you have been subjected to any kind of testing and coerced into it, that's against your human rights. It's also against the NHS Charter. It's again, of which the Secretary of State is supposed to uphold. So I would love you guys to just kind of sit and think, okay, so what has been the effect of, because this is where all of your statements come in to play. They come into play with regards to the psychological warfare part. So what have you been forced to do? Have you been alienated by your family? Have you witnessed people you've known for years jump across on the other side of the street? Have you been like leopard, anti-stabby jabby jabbers? Yeah. So I want you to really think about those things, because it's your voices. It's out, like, this is our real opportunity to actually say, it's not pretend. Like, this is an actual psychological warfare operation of which has impacted me, has caused me to experience harassment, bullying. So be careful how you word it, because we don't want them rounding us up and saying, yeah, well, you're all crazy now, because you're all depressed. But it can have had a psychological impact in the way that everybody else has been treating you. So when I do my statement, so I still have to write my own statement. So for those of you who haven't written yours yet, don't worry, you're in good company, as they say. But my statement will be around the effects of the psychological warfare operation on my clients, because that's how I ended up here with you guys, it was I had to start digging because they were asking me random questions and were freaking out about something which I could clearly see just wasn't the threat that everybody was telling them was the threat. So for those of you who are in groups and stand in the parks and stuff like that, you know, that's kind of what would be super helpful. Now, I know not everybody's going to be able to have it done by tomorrow evening. I know that. But for anybody who, you know, shows up at this place afterwards, this is just the injunction. This is not the court case. We will be going to court because it will have to be played out in court. So the more victim impact statements, the better. So that's kind of where we're up to with the injunction. I hope you enjoyed the kind of like screen scrolling. I have to say, I know a lot about immunology now. Oh, here's something really sneaky. So one of the things that I was going to try and weave in was the fact that the vaccines aren't vaccines, they're gene therapy, which they are. They are. The definition of what they do is actually also the definition of what gene therapy is in the like legal definitions with regards to legislation. However, they have in 2009 they inserted a kind of what's the word? A parameter, I guess, that says it pretty much basically says even if vaccines use these same technology, they are not classed as gene therapy. So this is really bad, but this will have to be a completely separate thing. We can't like this. So it would be detrimental to put that in there. So for those of you who are wondering, you know, if you when you read it, you're like, why didn't you take the opportunity to kind of just say, and that was going to be one of the arguments, it's that it's not even a vaccine. It isn't a vaccine, but in 2009 they changed the rules to what a vaccine is and what a vaccine isn't. Oh, I don't know what's going on. It's just stupid, bloody internet people. So that was going to be one of our arguments, and it isn't. So if you spot any shill lawyers talking about it's gene therapy, then they've not read the EU directive on gene therapy, literally the first section that says this is what gene therapy is. FYI, vaccines are not gene therapy, even if they're made in the same way. Like it literally just says, it's like 3 lines and then there's all the rest of it. But that was kind of like the beginning. So the kind of the other thing, so I just wanted to let you guys know where we're up to, but the other thing I wanted to talk about was, so Beverly Turner's case went to appeal, but it got thrown out. And for everybody here, hopefully you'll not have been surprised by that. So last week there was a horrific, this week, where are we this week? On Monday, oh my gosh, where are we now? Saturday. Yeah. On Monday, there was a couple of our petitions got through and it was dealt with by a group of, I mean, I can't even describe them other than brainwashed pro-vax ministers who, are all in on it, who went around the room. There was no debate at all whatsoever. So we'll have to put this on the cognitive shelf. And this will, at some point, this is one of the other things that we need to fix and change. There was no debate about a petition. What they should do, what we should be trying to push forward or make happen, that if a petition goes to a place where there's 100,000 signatures and it's going to be debated, that the people who start that petition have an opportunity to come and talk about why. And get their point across, because all that happened is the minister stood up and just said, we need everybody vaccinated. It was the most disgusting thing in the world. Now, what was awesome was the fact that loads of you guys showed up and we had like more dislikes than likes. So before it even started, there were 41 likes, which is a bit freaking bollocks. And by the time it finished, there were 83 dislikes. They did turn comments off, but that was just kind of horrific. However, on Tuesday morning, there was another ministers' committee meeting, and this time it was about vaccinating children, and that was worth watching. So, hi, Cindy, over the so I haven't been on YouTube for a while, so I got banned again for 14 days. So YouTube, I don't think I've managed to be there for a month. So that was good. That was positive, and a lot of the things that they said are now on record. So this is why this is powerful. So those things that have been said by the ministers are now on record as being truthful. The vaccines minister, the new vaccine minister, is even, I don't know whether is even more vax than the other one. You know, she cannot wait to jab those 12-year-olds. She just like she's insane. She is insane. She's dangerous. But that was better. That was lots of information. There were statistics. One of them, the ministers even kind of spoke about the fact that like the pandemic's over. Like, why are we mandating vaccines now when the pandemic's over? Why are we mandating for kids? Why are we threatening children, saying that they can't go to school unless they take this vaccine, which they don't need? Like, where is this kind of coming from? And I was just like, this is fire. This is fire. And actually, those ministers doing their speeches made better cases and better arguments than a couple of the law cases I've read that have been put in the past few weeks. Right? I was sitting going, these guys and gals are on it. Then I didn't see Wednesday. So there was another one again on Wednesday. And then also on Wednesday is when there was Beverly Turner's appeal. Now, I've mentioned before that they were not going after vaccines. They were not even really going after vaccines again for kids to stop them. That's not what they were going after. They were going after the fact that we need to have parental consent. We already do have to have parental consent. That is already, I mean, it doesn't mean that they're going to pay attention to it. So these are two completely different things. But I don't understand. There was never any point in that case, never any point to it, because they were arguing for things that are already there in law. The case was talking about, you know, you should vaccinate kids in houses where they've got immunocompromised people. Yes, they spoke about kind of new research, which kind of left it out questioning whether vaccines are necessary or not, but it was really shitty. So I'm not surprised it got thrown out. Then I believe, oh my gosh. So last week, was it Monday? When did they set David Clues up? So for those of you who don't know, so UNN, Unity News Network, I love the lads at UNN, but a little bit ago, they went a little bit astray with who they were supporting. Now, they got booted from everywhere. And the only place they can stream is DLive. So they had over 33,000 strong on YouTube, subscriptions, been going for years. And then we're talking about, I think they were talking about the election, and that got them removed completely. And then all of a sudden on DLive, I spotted they had Piers Corbyn. Then they had more and more shills. And I sent the thing that we were doing on the 18th. And 3 or 4 days later, UNN had teamed up with Anne de Brussier, the most useless, just useless person I've seen arguing any kind of law ever. And my heart sank a little bit. But I believe they're good people. So I believe they're good people. I think they just got swept up. So I also believe that they've set David Clues up So for those of you who don't know, the other day, Andy Busra and the team of lawyers, nobody's ever seen this team of lawyers, but this team of lawyers who've been working, as a collective since January earlier on in the year, decided that they were going to do a notice of liability and serve it on the PM. Now, I want to read their notice of liability because everything I've seen of her, she is quoting all of the stuff from the notice of liability that I did based on my terrorism statement that I already submitted, right? Plus a couple of, so there's a couple of extra laws that I didn't know about, but the bulk of the argument and a notice of liability is stupid. It's stupid. 100%. I mean, she's a really shit one. And this is the thing, is like, if that's the caliber of GCHQ's British assets, like, I'm very disappointed in our country. I'm very disappointed. But then again, she's been effective because people are just following her blindly, right? Anyway, so, and I know a few minutes ago I said that on Tuesday the MPs kind of were arguing things that were really good and really on point. They skirted around lots of things that were more hard hitting, but here's the God's honest truth, right? At any point in time, somebody who is an MP can set the wheels in motion for a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister and even the front bench. So if, this is what I keep saying to you guys, not a single MP is good people. Not a single one. They're all controlled opposition. Whether they're Labour, Lib Dem, Conservative, pretending to be anti-vax, pro-vax, whatever it is, they are all playing their part because not a single one has ever used the laws that are at their disposal and that they have that we don't to remove the baddies. Charlie Ward's legit. Yeah, 100%. Whoop, whoop, Charlie Ward. So the fact that Anna and the team of lawyers wrote this notice of liability, which they signed, and there was like 6 people there, right? They signed it and then they served it. And then 2 days later, there was a team meeting where 16 people, so this is where Mark Sexton popped up, and Mark Sexton popped up doing a video, which if you've watched that video, it kind of looks like somebody has stood the other side of the camera and they've got a sign that says, read this, otherwise, we will kind of murder you. It's like a kidnap video. It's the most uncomfortable video I've ever seen of somebody trying to talk to you about what's going on. And he was bigging it up, saying, there was 16 people in there and there was a senior minister and a senior Chile. I mean, I'm putting a lot more emotion into it than Mark Sexton. I do recommend you go watch it. There was Cahill, Shill City. So it was just like dropping shill names. Everybody in the Tory TT English group were just like, oh my God, have you seen this? It's hilarious. It was really funny. And then the sad thing is that everybody outside of our bubble of understanding the bullshit, because there's the sheep and then there's the supposedly awake. And the supposedly awake are the people who are following all the controlled opposition and making our jobs harder. But then I had to kind of step back and think all of those supposedly awake people are once again pinning their hopes, and this is more demoralizing than any of the lockdown stuff. Like, so the supposedly awake people will be seeing through the government bullshit But what they're actually witnessing is their heroes. So the controlled opposition heroes, who are these lawyers, who are these, TV personalities, or are these people who are fighting for us on social media, they're not able to do it. If they can't do it, I can't do it. So this is why this is really important, why really dangerous, and why we have to be take the opportunity to when people are going, £65,000 they gave to the bloody one legal case. Anyway, back to this 16 people in a minister meeting. So then, which was never going to do, it was never going to do anything, but, let them do it. So they strung this out all week. And then either today or yesterday, I hope they get a refund, Cindy, but actually in the case, the Beverly Turner case, one of the things that they're claiming for is the money back for all the trial. That's what they want, right? So they were going to take the people's money, and then if they'd have won, they would have got the other person they were going up against to pay them. And so they would have got paid twice. They would have got paid twice because there's no way they'd have refunded that. So they strung it out. And then yesterday, so there is the I'm going to call him Undertaker, but that's not what he is it? He's a funeral director. The funeral director was having a conversation. I think it was a phone conversation with one of the 16, who was dropping more shill names. I only listened to half of it. I'm not going to lie, guys. I can't remember who shared it, but I listened to half of it and I started laughing and I was like, I just don't have time for this shit. I can spend my time doing something far more important than listening to this train wreck. And you could tell in his voice that he knew already that it was just a waste of time and complete bollocks. But the person that they were talking to was just like, oh, and then, when we were, everybody else was talking to the minister and watching the minister, but I was paying attention to the way that he was behaving, and I could tell that he wasn't interested, and I could tell that he already knew all this information. And I was like, well, you're fucking stupid for not realizing that before you walked through the door. So for an entire week they've been strung everybody on again, only to let them down. So the timing's really important by this. So on Monday will be our 6 months up for the COVID 2020 Act. So that timing's really important, that not only Bev Turner's got kicked out, now this other supposed controlled opposition case, or whatever you want to call it, notice of liability, it's also failed. The other thing that's been coming out is scientists suggesting that we'll just have to start living with COVID, which on the surface looks like the narrative's fallen apart and all of the work that we've been doing is working and they're going to stop the vax. They are not going to. We are just starting to see the effects of the vaccine happen. The next few weeks, people are going to just start dropping dead. They are. And I know this is horrific. And I know this is what we've all been praying not to happen. But I have heard more ambulances in the last 7 days than I have, especially at the height of the pandemic, right? Supposedly height of the pandemic. We are in or moving into actual cold and flu season. So we're moving into, influenza season. I'm not sold on that. I believe that's because they're doing the vaccines. But cold is cold. The cold happens. The cold happens. The way that the vaccines have been manufactured is to purposely destroy the immune system, but not just break down the immune system, so that you end up with long-term immune deficiency, say, like fibromyalgia or ME or something like that, or MS or something like that. It means that when you then next get exposed to the coronavirus agent is your immune system, rather than attack the coronavirus agent, which is what, your immune system does. So I get a cold, my immune system attacks the cold. The way that the vaccines have been manufactured is that I would get a cold and my immune system attacks me. It doesn't attack the cold, it attacks me, because my natural immune system will try to fight the cold, because people still do have their natural immune system. And the virus then attacks the immune system. That's what triggers it. So this is why coronavirus vaccines have never, ever, ever been authorized, is because they've never been able to stop the antibody enhancement. They've never been able to stop it. And that's pretty much what we are going to see moving forward. So the other thing is that not everybody who's had it will drop dead. So we know lots of people have had the placebo. We also know that depending on your health will dictate, how strong you are, right? Also will dictate on how many shots they've had. So the more shots you have, the more virulent that spike protein and more toxic that spike protein is going to be. The other problem that we have is that, so some of the research that I've been reading, like I said, now I understand. Jesus, I know. Oh, yeah, gosh. I now understand a hell of a lot more about immunity than I did before. And the specific vaccine, so this is for those of you outside of the UK, this may not be as relevant, but this is very relevant to the UK. So the AstraZeneca vaccine uses a specific and a particular type of gene therapy. And there was a 2013 study that looked at the lasting effects of that specific type of gene therapy on the wider environment. And what they discovered was that it's not only in water. So basically it comes out in wee and feces. And I've mentioned this before, but it comes out and it hangs around. So for those of us who've never taken a vaccine, our immune system's still going to work. Like, we haven't got the gene altering elements so that our body attacks itself. However, if you haven't got a distiller, I recommend distilling. I also recommend filtering, then distilling if you're like me and you live in a really hard water area. So for those who've been vaccinated, and this kind of comes into a Treble Sevens question with regards to the booster is the real killer. For those who've been vaccinated with AstraZeneca, it's all right, Debs, don't worry. We are where we need to be. For those people who've been jabbed with AstraZeneca, even if they only ever have one, every time they drink water, they are building up the level of toxicity in their body, because it's in the water, it's in the supply chain. So the thing that annoys me is that scientists work in isolation. So when you read the study, I'll share it afterwards. Let me just write on my hand. No, let me stick it on a Post-it note. ADE study, Vax, water. Woohoo, 777. Yeah, it is disgusting. I was filtering. So the thing that's really depressing is that the researchers were really confused. Were really confused and shocked that 20% of the water, or is it 20% of the 20%? I read it very early in the morning and I can't remember off the top of my head. So 20% was definitely the number. They were really shocked. Anyway, they were really shocked that it was still there and stable. And that's difference. It wasn't just present in the water. It's present in the water and stable, which means the gene therapy effects will happen when you take the water on. And so then we move to where we are now, and there was the Canadian doctor in February or March who was just like, we didn't realize the adrenovirus vector would be so toxic and go into every cell in your body. Right. But that was his statement. So either the people who made these things have never read any research, any of the preceding research up to it, or they don't understand the human body. So 55% of a female body cells is water, because it's the water that actually your chemicals, all your emotions and stuff, they transmit in the water, right? So 55% of a female's body is water, and 65% of a male's body is water, of your cells. So if this viral vector that AstraZeneca has used is present in drinking water after going through a person and going through the sanitizing. So this is like turn on the UK tap. So this isn't just like they've gone to the plant and it's in the water. You know, they haven't just dipped in the toilet after somebody's been for a wee. It's been through all of the processes that it's supposed to technically be. Well, you know, that's the other lie, that it's clean when it comes through your tap. So it's been through all of those things and it's in the tap. The tap water contains it, and it's live and it's stable and it's ready to do its replication. So based on that, like, how were they shocked? How were they shocked? And how did they not realize it would affect every single cell? One of the reasons why essential oils are so powerful and helpful is, depending on the grade, the quality, blah, 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 is a single drop of essential oil will positively affect every single cell in your body within 20 minutes. Because of the way that it travels and your cells replicate, and all of the, you know, that's how your body works. Is you take something into your body and your body distributes it around your body. It's like freaking effective, like hyper effective. They absolutely did know. Absolutely did know. And if they didn't, then they should be struck off, because that's just, I mean, how can you produce something, discover it's in the water, discover that it was, I mean, they'd already done the mice stuff that had proved it crosses the blood-brain barrier. But the other thing about essential oils is that after a couple of hours, their effect can no longer be detected. So they naturally dissipate. So after a couple of hours, they naturally dissipate. The same as if you have coffee, 8 to 9 hours later, 8 to 10 hours later, the effects of the caffeine on a cellular level is no longer there. So potentially that's a little, potentially that's a kind of little beacon of light that, you know, at least when people are going to sleep overnight, their body's having an opportunity to expel maybe some of the toxins that they have been taking on. Who knows? But there's no, I have only been looking into this for the past week, and I don't see how anybody didn't know. Like, the only reason I believe the researchers came out and started saying those things is because they realized how pissed off the people were, and they realized that they can't get away with it, because there is just no way that people didn't realize that. There is no way. This research is decades old. and they've been attempting it for years and years and years and trying, and had millions of pounds worth of grants, billions of pounds worth of grants. There is no way they didn't know. So Trouble Seven says unvaccinated men and women are gold after this shit comes out. I mean, they already are, aren't they? With pure bloods is what the those over on TikTok are saying. It's just sad. That's the thing. It makes me angry, then it makes me sad, and it makes me frustrated. So on good news, for those of you who haven't heard, so I get really annoyed with people keep telling me on Facebook that, you know, we're not winning, and they're following the shills and they're waiting for everybody else to do it. So for those people who are watching on Facebook, yeah, I'm talking to you guys because you piss me off a lot. So for anybody who's wondering, you know, how much winning's happening, then you're not paying attention to the fact that the real live people who are, you know, shop assistants, stay-at-home mums, who are, you know, builders, and real life people who are getting together, filing lawsuits across the US and causing an absolute lawful shitstorm. A law case has been filed in Australia, so it's not just the US. In Australia, they've done it. So we are doing ours, and in the UK, and we're doing ours ours is very different. It is very different, but the premise is the same. So it's about an injunction, but we're just doing it we're going for very different laws that they won't see coming. But that's okay. That's the point. So for anybody who is still sat there saying, one, condescending and patronizing, are we winning yet? While I see the country go to shit, and you're not doing anything. I mean, doing anything that's actually going to affect anything. i.e. not doing a notice of liability to your head teacher who doesn't actually do the vaccine. Like, at what point do the pretend awake realize that the lawyers who were telling them to serve a notice of liability onto their head teacher, when the teacher never jabs a child, and I said this months ago, is that if you are going to send a notice of liability, you do it to the CCG, that's the clinical commissioning group. You do it to the person on your council who is responsible for a cabinet level for dishing out the health and social care. You do it on the hospital. You do it on the individuals at the vaccination centres, but you don't freaking do it to the school who have nothing to do with it. And every single time there's been an immunization program in a school, as a parent, you get sent a letter to say, we are doing it on this day. We need your consent in order to jab your child. That has always happened. And you can just say no, or you can keep your child off school. And I have been that child. My mum was completely useless, back in the day where I thought vaccines were the way. I was at school and my mum didn't fill the form in. And so I got taken outside. So they did the whole Gillick competency test on me because mum hadn't signed the form. And so for those of you who are kind of wondering how it goes, one of the first, so the lady kind of, I just remembered this the other day. So she was asking me, what did she say? So she started with she was asking about my academics. So, what sets are you in? So trying to understand where I am mentally, because if I was in, bottom set with what the equivalent is today, you have a TA, there's no way that child is mentally competent to make those kind of decisions. A kid who can't, I was going to say a kid who can't tell the time. Like, I can't tell the time, but I can do other stuff. So she was asking me, well, what sets are you in? So I was in top set. Well, okay. Well, she's obviously got some understanding of the real world because she's in top set. So then she went through, so it was for TB. And TB, you have to have the tester first, don't you? You have the tester first. And she said, okay, well, we your mom hasn't signed the form, but if you want it, you can have it, but we just need to have a conversation first. So first she started asking me about, my education. And then she started talking about what was going to happen. She was talking about the 6 needles and how they put it in you and then it will test. And I think your skin changes color or something happens after a few days. If it reacts, and if nothing happens, is then you then don't actually need the TB vaccine. So she was like, do you consent for us to test? That's what I had to consent to. And I was just like, I mean, the idea of 6 needles at once was just kind of like, sure, go for it. I don't, sure. But I was 15, right? So I was 15. The idea of doing that to a child who's in kind of year 7 is insane. But that's the law. So the other thing about this whole pushback against the schools is it's detracting from the actual way they would be jabbing your kids without your consent. They won't be doing it through the school immunization program, which is run by the national immunization team. That's not the way they would do it. Everybody, all of a sudden, I mean, this freaking collective amnesia of the sheep and the supposedly awake drives me fucking crackers. In the Coronavirus Act, this is why the Coronavirus Act is the most dangerous tool that the cabal has at their disposal. And everybody stopped. All of the controlled opposition, they never even fucking mention it in their lawsuits. Not even a cursory in passing. They never mention it. The only way they can vaccinate anybody is because they have the COVID Act in place. Because in the COVID Act, which is only available because there's a health emergency. So that's it. So you get rid of the health emergency, COVID Act can't play, vaccines can't play, right? So in the COVID Act, when you drop your child off at school, is somebody from social services or, a designated person. So back in 1853, the designated person who would come and take your child and vaccinate them was called a guardian. So they were called a guardian, right? So it's the same shit. Like, it's genuinely the same shit as what they did over smallpox. It took 53 years for us to get the government to stop mandating and jabbing. So it didn't officially, you could still end up in prison and facing a fine until 1907 if you didn't get your child vaccinated for smallpox. So in there is that they can just walk into your house, take you to an undisclosed location and jab the shit out of you. They can burn your house down if they think it's infected, like we did, in the plague, when the Black Plague, we drew signs on people's doors and made them kind of lepers. So everything that they've done in history, they've enacted in the COVID Act. So the school are not going to jab your child without consent. The school immunization team, which is the NHS, not the school, will not be jabbing your child without consent. If they're going to jab your child without consent, is a minibus will rock up to that school, and every single child whose parent hasn't consented, they will usher them onto the minibus, they will take them away for 72 hours, and they will do it, and they will not tell you where your child is. That is what is written into the act. So every single person who was telling you to fight back against your school is purposely leading you away from the actual way that they would be doing it. I'm just going to caveat that with the fact that that has been in place. They haven't used it. If anybody was going to get carted off, I'm sure I would have by now. So I don't think they actually have the power to do that. I also believe they definitely don't have the power to get away with doing that is because they've still not been able to bring in the COVID pass. So if you look at our neighbours, our European neighbours, some of them have fallen. They've got the passes in, and now they're, they were protesting. They're still protesting, right? None of them are doing law cases or doing anything. I mean, they're all believing the bloody Rainer Fulmich bullshit that's been dragging on for 9 months, and these amazing lawyers haven't put anything together. I mean, Australia, the guys have finally stopped watching football, but now they're rioting. I mean, that's the fastest way to get the UN. It's just stupid. But they're detracting from the actual methods that the government have at their lawful disposal. So, yes, Debs, we are definitely in the US. You guys are winning. You are. 777, the whole maritime law was built here. It was, and it was embedded across the majority of lands in their laws. But it doesn't matter. It's because they just ignore it. So they just ignore all of it. They just the mandating the vaccines is unlawful. Like, there's literally law that says you can't do that, and they did it anyway. Which leads into why we're doing our injunction how they're not going to see it coming. So Jobber says, but if ivermectin gets proven to work, the vaccine emergency state becomes invalid. No. Because a few months ago, that was the case in February when the BIRD group, the British Ivermectin group, put out their statement saying you need to use ivermectin straight away. Back then, yes, it was true. However, around about June and July, the vaccine companies came out and they admitted that you could still catch it and transmit it. Catch and transmit COVID if you're vaccinated. So even if you're vaccinated, you may need antiparasitic agencies. So where they are now is that, I mean, it's just the most hilarious thing is the vaccine companies said you need ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine and zinc in order to not die in hospital if you catch COVID, which is why they are using those things on the people who are vaccinated, but refusing them for the people who are unvaxxed. Yes, Debs, the emergency, I mean, they should never, ever, ever have been able to put the COVID Act in place because it was on the same day as the highly infectious diseases agency group, whatever they're called, said that there's no threat to life, or the threat to life is minimal. It's less than the flu. We don't need to deal with it. And that's the proof of the PSYOP. Well, that and the fact that, for 4 months, nobody died. Like, nobody died in excess. So here's the other thing with regards to everybody else's legal arguments is nobody even makes that statement. Nobody makes that statement. The ministers didn't make that statement. It was downgraded 23rd of March, and 23rd of March is the day. So on the 19th of March is where the COVID Act went to the first passing. Yeah. But they don't make that statement. So here's the thing, is they don't make the statement to back that up with the fact that there were no excess deaths for the 4 months where it is categorically proven COVID was in the UK, was running rampant. There was no social distancing, no masking, no lockdowns, no vaccines, none of those things. And everybody survived. They're also not making the argument that we've now been in the worst pandemic ever for 18 months, and over 30% of the people have never been vaccinated and they're still alive. And most have probably never even had any symptoms from it. So you have to be like, okay, well, at what point, when you have a conversation with somebody, and so here's the thing, like, I had that conversation so many times last year, so many times with people last year, and so I just started deleting people. I just instant blocked so many people on Facebook with that. Just, I could not understand how they couldn't get that through their heads. And they were like, well, yeah, but it hasn't traveled everywhere. I was like, it is everywhere, because everybody had one person who had caught it, stroke died, like early in January. And if every time I walk into a room, I infect 10 people who infect other 10 people, and within 24 hours, we've infected 100,000 people, which is what the BBC was freaking pretty much saying, with the R number's like 3 or 6. I mean, it was at 6 at one point. That I was like, so technically, if everybody had it, like, it already swept through the entire population of the UK before we locked down. Like, there's no way, our the UK's ability to party and enjoy Christmas and New Year is known throughout the world, so much so that we get a bad rep for the amount of alcohol and partying we do, right? There is no way the UK goes through Christmas and New Year with a super spreading, dangerous disease, and everybody survives until the day they stop us talking to each other. And that's when everybody starts dying. Like, there shouldn't need to be any more argument than that. Like, it just should, like, that's just that. That's not emotional. That is a literal fact. That like, you watch people sing Auld Lang Syne and they're kissing everybody. So they're not even just in a room, they are saliva swapping. And at one point, people were told that they were not allowed to have sex, and if they had sex, they had to have a fucking mask on. Like, that, just the entire thing is just ludicrous. And I can't, sometimes you just, I don't understand. I mean, and there will have been people doing that. There will have been people who took the freaking highly toxic antibacterial, virus, bacteria, two different things, but everybody's using antibacterial rub, not antiviral, antibacterial. And I had that argument a lot. I was like, well, it's antibacterial and it's a virus, so what's it going to do for you other than destroy your immune system? Because your immune system is made of bacteria. So that's why they're highly toxic. That's why they banned them. That's why the NHS stopped using them. But sure, everybody's forgotten that bit of history. So there will have been people who have rubbed each other down with antibacterial stuff, washed their bedding on 90 degrees, got into bed, barely touched each other, probably done some very weird Kama Sutra style position so that they barely touch, with masks on, with gloves on, then dived into the shower afterwards and decontaminated them. Like, you just know that that's going to have happened. I mean, I just, for those of you guys who've got kids, who are young kids, who in 10 years are adults, or 20 years and are adults, they're going to be learning about this in school, or they're going to have learned about this in school, and they're going to just be sat there hearing about this sheer stupidity, absolute idiocy of the vast majority of people. I mean, here's the other argument, is that if COVID was so dangerous and they still haven't vaccinated Africa, why are people still alive in Africa? I mean, Tanzania has got less than 1% vaccinated. And I mean, they've been living for 18 months without any vaccines, and without any masks, and without any social distancing, and without any lockdowns. And they're not dead. And I had that argument as well. I was like, well, what about the refugee camps? They're not dead yet. They're still coming over on a boat. They're not dead yet. Why aren't all these people dead? Why aren't I dead? Like, just like, how do you just get to a point where you're like, how are you so asleep? It sounds like a fetish, but I know, funny, isn't it? People are just those. I mean, I'm ashamed. I'm so ashamed of people. Homeless people are living. Yep. Just everybody's living. So, wait, I spotted a question a minute ago, or a comment a minute ago. So Trouble 7 said women seem to deal better with COVID than men do. And really interestingly, they really do. I mean, it's 50% less likely to die. So men are 59% more likely to die from COVID. Or with, that I know that it's all bullshit. But yes, so 50 times more likely. But also when it comes to pregnancy, I mean, what they've proven that women who have they say have COVID, but a positive PCR test, right? So is it they don't find it in the umbilical cord, they don't find it in the child or in the baby. So the mums aren't, I mean, obviously the reason why the mums aren't passing it on is because we are, cycling at 45 threshold, and there's no fucking live virus to begin with. So of course it's not going to show up, but we're not, obviously that's a positive thing for our argument. So we are using the bullshit science as well as the real stuff. So the reason why I think that statistical anomaly has probably happened, and I'm sorry guys, it's because if we look at the demographics of the people who are fighting this World War III, it's women. And I believe it's probably going to be something as basic as, I mean, so the real factors in deaths and, COVID death is obesity, is underlying health conditions, is all of those things. And I'm going to say, in order for them to say that you've got COVID, you have to be one of those dumb fucks who go and get a COVID test. So whenever I went past, you also have to remember that lots of male orientated industries never shut down. so the age range of quite high mortality in men is like late 40s to mid 60s. Okay, it's very high for heart attacks, cancers. Like it's just, just that baby boomer time of life really set people up for very, very bad health, particularly men. So because we raise men and women differently, traditionally have raised men and women very differently, women take care, they took care of themselves. They had to for the guy. They had to feed the guy, look after the guy. So women tend to be quite active still into later life because they're running around after their husband. So they do tend to be a lot healthier overall. But also lots of the male industries never shut down. So, the construction industry didn't close, all of that didn't close. And that age group has a very high risk of death anyway. And so if they've taken a PCR test, they've died of COVID. So I would suggest that actually it's probably the same. If you ignored the gender and instead, if you could, I mean, we will never know because it's all a lie. So this is the really annoying thing, is you'll never really be able to know because there's been so much fuckery. But what would be ideal is if you could find healthy people, and their reactions. And when you look at the original trials, there was there kind of wasn't that male-female distinction. So it was both a male and female paramedic in Alaska, male and female paramedic in Alaska who had an allergic reaction. Yeah, so I think it's circumstance. And general health issues, and just the men in Australia have only woke up now. Loads. How many people went and got jabbed to go and watch the football, or kept taking the test to go and watch football? If you then got run over on your way home, you died of COVID. Whereas, and so with regards to viruses as well, anyway, women do tend to. So there may be a small difference because women tend to work in roles where they are exposed more to viruses, and that builds up your immune system. So for all of those teachers out there who are vaxxed to the hills and think the children are the threat, decades of research into vaccines and transmissibility in classrooms have proven time and time again that if you are a female teacher, or if you're a teacher, not just female, if you're a teacher in a school and you have no children at home, your immune system benefits from being in the room with the kids because they pass all their shitty germs onto you, and your immune system has an opportunity to react to a weakened strain. So, I mean, this is why it was just, I mean, I knew that years ago. But that's why, I mean, kids, just, every time I went and saw my niece and nephew, I'd come back with a freaking cold because I don't have children. So, but it would never affect Sally because she's round it. So her immune system is better. So that's how it works. If you work in an environment where you are in and around snotty kids or elderly with their viral infections, is your immune system is heightened, and so that also then tends to be a more female role. So do women have a better immune system because they're women, or because they just happen to be in the environments where it's built up, but it's less of a shock to the system? Yeah. So I mean, this is why you've got to be really careful with statistics and causational statistics. So, I mean, they're all correlations, so they could interplay, they may not, but there's so many more factors. And then, in reality, when it comes to health, it's diet. It's diet, sleep, and exercise. Are you eating healthily, drinking, clean water? Are you exercising frequently? Do you get enough sleep? Are you stressed out? If you are stressed out, then that literally shuts your immune system down. But yeah, so, and they used that, they played on that. So going back to what we were talking about before, it's also that kind of age group, who are the most vaxxed. They're vaxxed to the hilt. And I'm proud of it. Lots of them. I mean, the moment they realize they signed their death sentence, they signed their own death certificate to go on holiday. It's just insane. It's like somebody handing you a gun, twisting the barrel and saying there's a bullet in here, but there's five empty spaces. Pull the trigger before you, and if you manage to survive, then you can get on the plane. And they all pulled the trigger. Some of them shot themselves, and some of them have survived for now. And some of them maybe were really inaccurate and shot themselves in the foot, and they'll get gangrene at some point, and they're still going to die. Yeah, but that's literally what they did. Like how they're insane. Genuinely, clinical diagnosis of actually being not sane. Yeah, not sane. So your period question is quite interesting, actually, Treble 7, because I was thinking about that the other day. Well, it's in the injunction, and so they're doing studies into it. So they haven't kind of spoken more about why that could be the case. But we know that with AstraZeneca is you may get blood clots. So we already know. I mean, we know that it does dodgy shit with your blood. That's what it. The spike protein does crazy stuff. But there's a drug called warfarin, which thins your blood. So if you are older, they put you on warfarin. I mean, they shouldn't. There's no proof that a daily dose of warfarin is actually beneficial, and they still do that. And an aspirin a day keeps a heart attack away. It doesn't. It actually erodes your liver, but they still do that. So they put people with potential to clot on warfarin, and that's a blood thinner. And so there must be some kind of blood thinning effect. And so then that got me thinking, well, if it's happening very obviously in women, including women who've had operations where they don't, where they've had parts of wombs removed and have gone through the menopause, so that part of the body is now, is gone into hibernation mode. It doesn't work in the same way anymore. So it's not just women who would have a period anyway having one that's slightly heavier or having one earlier. The real shock is the people who no longer have that functioning capability experiencing that. And then obviously, because it's in the water, there's no such thing as shedding. It's in the water. But so, when you talk about it's in the water, it's then in all the food, because lettuce is like 98% water. So we might be filtering our water and distilling our water, but we're still eating the food. It's in the supply chain. It's in the water. The water turns into rain. It dry, like it just. We can mitigate the effects, but we will still be experiencing some of the effects because it's in the supply chain, right? So does that mean that on some level people are experiencing thinning of the blood, and it's just being shown overtly in women. Because if that's the case, particularly, they jabbed all the old people first, let's jab the most vulnerable, the most likely to have an immune deficiency with the thing that could give them an immune deficiency. And it's just insane. Anyway, but so if there is a blood thinning potential, and then you've got people taking warfarin, are they literally bleeding to death internally? Because is that what's going on? It's horrific. It's horrific. Absolutely no escape unless we got hunger strike. Yeah, because I grow some of my own food. This year's been quite a poor harvest. But even there's no such thing as organic food, and I say this and it pisses people off, but there isn't, because the rain still lands on your crops the same as it lands on mine, and the pesticides are in the soil, and when it gets hot, does nobody remember that's from school? There's water on the ground, and then it gets hot and the water dissipates and it goes up into the clouds. It was on the ground taking all that shit with it, and then the temperature changes, and then it rains, and the way that food is pollinated and plants pollinated is birds and bees, and all of those insects jump from field to field and they don't come across a organic force field. It's not how it works. Absolutely. You can mitigate it by not eating food which has been sprayed with pesticides. Okay, you can. But anybody who is selling organic stuff should be done by trading standards, because it's a con. It's a con. And that is one of the reasons why I love doTERRA so much, is because they will not call their stuff organic, because they literally came out and went, I don't control the animals or the rain. How it's not organic because it's natural. And we've been spraying shit on the ground for years. And even those crops which are on, organic, you only have to not use pesticides for 14 days before sale. And that's classed as organic as well. Though I'm not saying everybody's like that, but unscrupulous companies will literally be pesticiding up until, T-minus 14 days, and then they stop. But there was a study that I read a while ago when I was looking into all the biological and chemical weaponry stuff. There was DDT, which is Agent Orange, was found in the umbilical cord of a mum, because women can give birth, and her baby 70 years later. And she didn't live anywhere where, they were spraying, where they were using it or spraying it. And, supposedly it'd gone by then. So that's 70 years later. The half-life on DDT is just crazy. So that's in the system. All of these things are in, they've just consistently fucked with everything. But it doesn't mean we can't be healthier. It doesn't mean those things, but just, don't get too hung up on the fact that, the spike vax protein and the lipids are in the water. They've been spraying lots of other shit anyway. Just do what you can to feel good, and then your immune system works. That's the key. Your immune system works if you feel awesome. Spend time every single day doing stuff that makes you feel awesome, and you can clear out the toxins. And just don't lick pesticides and herbicides. You don't walk into a nursery and lick the snot off a child's face. All of those things you're just not going to do. So you should be fine. I know, that's what I kept saying. So I kept saying to everybody, well, I tell you, maybe you do. But I kept saying to everybody, look, if the kids are alive who literally walk into a supermarket and lick the shelves and the floor, I mean, kids are they're disgusting. They literally lick things, and the kids aren't dead, then we'll all be all right. You'll all be all right. And as long as you don't walk up to an old person and cough in their face when you are infected, the old people will be all right. So that was the kind of argument I'd had with my mum that day that I came on very angry and stressed out. You know, she'd said that I was selfish for not having it. And my response was, anytime I had the flu, I would never go and see grandma because, you know, I knew that she had a weakened immune system. So what makes you think if I caught the Rona, I was going to go out the house, run around and just lick every old person I see? Because that's the only way I could transmit anything. And then, you know, her response was, don't be so stupid, because I know you wouldn't do that. And you're like, okay, so then I'm not going to pass it on to anyone, am I? Because asymptomatic spread is untrue. They can't cope with the two. Like the facts don't work. The facts don't work. Yes, not on toast. I know. I don't want no snot on toast. Absolutely 777, they are priming their immune system, and this is it. So kids will play in mud and they make mud cakes and then they lick their hands, and but even if without licking their hands, it's without licking anything, because they touch things. I mean, your immune system it starts on your body, it starts on your hands. This is why it was so vital that the cabal made everybody wash their hands incessantly and use those antibacterials incessantly. Like that is designed to destroy your immune system. Now, I'm not saying go to the toilet and, you know, stick your hand in the bowl afterwards and don't wash your hands. Like, we're not talking about being disgusting, but you don't need to wash your hands every time you touch a door handle. They're crazy. No, but kids do lick things. But as adults, you know, that was one of the things that you see. All of those people, the people who are ill and the people who are going to die first from the vaccines, are the people who are masked up, and they're destroying their capacity to clear toxins, to oxygenate their cells. They're also the same people who are literally destroying their immune system by using those antibacterial rubs. Like, they're going out of fashion because they can't seem to understand there's a difference between the word bacteria and the word virus, and them being two very different things. Yeah, we do eat shit every day. Yeah, I mean, we drink it. It's in the supply chain. Neil ate worms as a kid and mud. Yeah, I think I ate mud. My brother used to dig up the worms and hide them under the sofa for safekeeping. Ugh. My big sister used to eat beetles. Gross. Disgusting. I mean, to be fair, one of the reasons I probably didn't eat anything is because, you know, I had physical complications with my legs, and you know, I was so fat because I couldn't move around. So I was like this little fat bald thing. They had to wedge me in the baby walker, so I probably couldn't get at anything to eat, to be fair. Literally used to wedge me in so that I could move around. I was bald until I was 2. This little fat bald thing attempting to, yeah, I probably couldn't get any bugs. I'm sure I'd have had bugs if I could have got them. But yeah, exactly. And so, and so it goes beyond those things. So telling everybody that you shouldn't breastfeed and you should use the follow-on milk, which doesn't have any of the natural immune stuff in that your body has. Even cesarean section rather than a vaginal birth deprives the child of the natural immune system that oh my dear, that is coated all over them. I mean, every time I think of a child coming out of the bits and bobs, I just imagine, it fills me just, it's horrific. Oh yeah. Ugh, babe. Ugh. Sorry, guys. Absolutely. Nature did. I mean, we've been knocking around a few thousand years, and we've survived a few thousand years without all of these things. The people of today are so stupid. It's like they just like nothing happened before 30 years ago. Just the world didn't exist then. I know, Penelope, I know. Every time I think about birth, though, if you ever seen those videos where like horses and that, they're just like walking around a field and they just stand there and then this thing just drops out all in this. I mean, that's what goes through my head. I love Jessie, says Batar. Yeah. So I stopped eating McDonald's. I mean, quite a while ago. I don't eat that shit. But the Hammersmith twins, were talking about what goes into the McDonald's. But I mean, the real problem that we have in the UK, so Trouble Seven's talking about the fries and burger. Yeah. So the real problem that we have in the UK is this incessant need for young, spotty boy teenagers to spunk in the sauce. I mean, that's when I stopped going to McDonald's, when the news reports were coming out, of which one of the McDonald's around where I live was full of jizz. I was just like, that's disgusting. What, like, how, I mean, at what point does somebody just go out the back, crack one out and throw it in the mayonnaise? Oh. Yeah. So how much, yeah. Yeah, that's when I stopped eating McDonald's. Right. So, anywho, a quick roundup. Well done to all of the Yanks it is very special sauce, Neil. Now you know why it's called special sauce. I was a waitress for many years. I've seen some of the disgusting things chefs do. I mean, none of the places I worked were they, going to McDonald's level of disgusting. But a lot of them are very unhygienic individuals. I mean, people will spend like thousands in a restaurant, and I would prefer to eat at home because I can see what's happening to my food. I know where it's been. So well done to all you Yanks who are cracking on, getting shit done. I will be working. I'll probably have a 90-minute nap, and then we'll be working kind of through the night and solidly to get this done for us. If you haven't done a victim impact statement, please do. Also, if you are active at the moment on social media and you see people sharing the shill stuff, like, this is what we need to do, like, very, very important, particularly in the UK, because we will need more people actually awake than following the shills. It is about the numbers. Maybe they'll all be getting fed up by now, but we don't want them just all being despondent. Who knows? Right. So thank you very much, my lovelies. Look forward to seeing you guys again on Wednesday. Have an amazing weekend, and I shall see you all soon. Lots of love. Mwah.